Hello, I'm Rick Stivers, and I'd like to welcome you to Young Martin's Reels. Today, we're going to be working on this newer style Mitchell 300. This is the Mitchell 300 Excellence, and I'm going to get back to this one in just a minute. But before that, I want to tell you what's coming up. One of the things we're going to be working on is this Mitchell 309. I'm sorry, Pen 309, and I was debating on whether this was going to become a parts reel or this was going to end up being something that we fixed. And it almost was not economically feasible to fix this reel. Let me tell you what happened with this reel. This reel was pulled up off the bottom of Lake Calaveras. And I don't know how many years it was down there, but what happened is due to dissimilar metal corrosion, it actually ate holes in the spool. And I'll give you closer up views of that when we actually go to work on this. So I took it apart. I was going to look at it, maybe that idea of buying a spool. Well, I did find a spool for it. I also found that the intermediate gear for the worm gear has a tooth missing off of it. So between those two, I was like, man, it's going to end up costing a lot more to fix that than this reel was worth. Well, I managed to find a used spool on eBay, and I ordered parts from Mystic Parts as far as the rest of them goes, and because I have another reel that also needed parts. So that kind of combined all my shipping together, making it more feasible. So this one, when the parts all come in, we're going to do a rebuild on this reel. I've taken it apart and kind of cleaned it up. It actually functions pretty well, except for the fact that it's got big holes in the spool. So we're going to tear this one down and rebuild. I haven't done a 309 yet. Also coming up is going to be this Pen Monofill 25. So I'm going to have like a week of Pen reels when all the parts come in. But there's this Pen Monofill 25. It needed the drag washers installed in. And when I first got this thing, the frame was tweaked. It was bent so that it didn't want to turn every time you wind the handle. And so I straightened the seat, that took a little bit of effort to get that done, but I got it done. And but I got the seat straightened out so it's all squared up and runs true again. And the only thing left that it needed was drag washers. So I've got those ordered. Those have actually come in. The next thing was actually this Pen 9 reel in a bag. And this was not really a reel in a bag. This was Pen reel parts all over my dad's shop. And I found them in this drawer, that drawer, this drawer over here, that box, that bucket over there. And when you put them all together, it was still missing a few things. So one of the things that was missing was the shield for the worm drive. Another thing that was missing was one of the trim rings for the side. And what else was it missing? A screw and a spring. So with all that together, I thought, well, I don't know if this one's worth fixing or not. But since I was ordering the rest of the parts, I said, well, let's go ahead and add those to the parts list, and let's get this ordered. And I also ordered some extra spare parts, some extra springs. You can never have too many springs laying around, I think. So I went ahead and ordered those. All those parts are going to be coming in. So there's going to be like a whole week of let's rebuild the Pen reels. And I know that's not real popular with you guys. And the reason I know that, every time we do some kind of a junk reel, like this thing here, or that Swift reel that I did, my numbers shoot through the roof as far as viewership. And every time I do one of these Pen reels, my views drops way off. Well, I'm sorry, but I do need to get these 3 Pen reels done, so I'm going to get them knocked out. And that's probably going to be it for the Pen level winds for a while. I don't think I'll have any left. But those will all be ready to go to the coast and go fishing. So anyway, that's what I've got coming up. And for those of you who don't like these level wind reels, I'm sorry, I've got to get them knocked out. But back to this Mitchell Excellence reel. I got this in. It came in from Jones. And Jones sent this reel in telling me that it didn't have anti-reverse, or that what had happened, anti-reverse, he said, wasn't working on it. He said he would take it apart, clean it up, fix it, and he would take it out, and 5 or 6 casts later, the anti-reverse wasn't working. And I took it out of the box and turned the anti-reverse on. and it worked fine. But then all of a sudden, it stopped. And, well, we're getting line everywhere now. And my dad always told me not to do that. It'll break your teeth. Well, I've been doing it for 50 years, and I haven't broke a tooth yet. So there's always the first time, I guess. But now, the anti-reverse is, there you go. Now it's back to work. It works, and then it doesn't work. It works, and then it doesn't. So we're going to take this reel apart and see if we can figure out. My guess is it's probably going to be either a burr on the anti-reverse pawl, or it's going to be a weak spring. There it goes right there, not working. And you can hear it. It's trying to work. It's trying to catch, but it's just not getting the job done. All right. So we're going to see what we can do with it. So anyway, let's get started on that. First thing we're going to do with this is take the spool off. Set it off to the side. Okay. And see what we see inside here. Well, it's kind of dirty inside. It looks like it needs a little work. All right. Let's go ahead. And okay, this is a through handle. So unscrew the handle on the other side. You can swap this either way. I'm going to send it home the same way it came in, with the handle on this, on the other side, on this side right here. Okay, pull the handle out, and let's go ahead and take these screws out. I'm going to break them loose with a common and take them out with a Phillips. All right, with those out, I'm assuming the side cover will come off. There we go. There we go. All right. Bearing looks okay. Okay, we're going to go ahead now and take out the screw in the crosswind block so that we can pull the axle shaft out. All right, this is one of these clip types. That screw's holding in this clip. So lift the clip out. Like so. See, it's a hook. And it hooks across the axle shaft. Let's take the axle shaft out. Oh, maybe. Yeah, we did get that gear out. Okay. Something's still holding this up. Okay, in the event that it's like that, there's a possibility it's just held tight. There we go. Snap the cap back on and try pulling it out using the cap so that you've got more leverage. This has just got old dirt and grease on it. That's what was holding it. Okay, now we can take that spool back off of the shaft, axle shaft. There we go. All right, so I got the axle shaft out. And we're now going to remove this screw, which is holding in our lockdown. Okay, with that done, we should be able to remove the nut off the front. That's a little too big. There we go. All right, slide this rotor off, and that brings us into here. Okay. There's our crosswind block. What have we got here? Okay, this is our anti-reverse mechanism. I'm trying to see exactly what it's doing. Let's flip the lever here. That sometimes helps. Okay, that releases it, and that re-engages it right there. Okay, with it engaged, it should go from there to there. Okay, now this arm right here has got to fit through this little hook right here, which it does. We're going to lift that out of there now, carefully. All right. I think that might be part of our problem right there, as this is moving quite freely. I think, yeah, there's our problem right there. Okay, this plastic lever here is kind of sprung. It's not holding tension anymore on that center. Now I'm wondering if I clean the oil out of there, if it will improve the matter. It's actually already better just with that little pull down I did. We'll see if, yeah, using plastic as a spring is not what I consider a wonderful idea. All right. Let's see, let's put all this back together so you can see what I'm talking about in case I missed it. Okay, that goes in there like so. All right, as this rotates this way, nothing, but when it goes to reverse the other way, it creates friction right here. And see, it's not holding enough tension here. Okay, but at least we can see what's causing the problem. Let me think on this. Tell you what, let's do. Let's take this off. Take this off. What I'm going to do is clean this and see if by removing the grease out of it, it will create enough friction to cause it to grab more. What it needs is this piece here replaced, but there's no parts available. So let's clean that out. Let's clean this off. Let's slip that back on and see if we've created enough resistance to allow it to travel. Okay. No. It's still not fully engaging each time. All right, well, I've got an idea what I might try to do next. Let's lift this back out of here. And what I think I'm going to try to do is add a bead of super glue around the inside of this and let it cure up and see if that will create enough added size to give me the friction that I need. So let me clean it up good with some alcohol and we'll come back to that. We have now put that bead of super glue around this and gave it a chance to cure. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you folks. This reel has been completely put back together and done, only to find out that for whatever reason the video didn't record. So we're going back into it, tearing it back apart. And let me show you what I did find. This thing it's functional. We put this collar back in here. The large end comes out. And now when we put this in here and slide it in, it's nice and snug. Okay, when you hold on to that in the middle and turn that, you can definitely feel the tension. It's doing its job. So that's what we needed there. Okay, so when you put this back in now with this post right here, let's see if you can see it good. There you go. That post facing up, like so. And then set this back in there with this arm dropping down in between there, like that. Now, see how your anti-reverse is working? Okay. And another thing that I have noticed on this is that the bail right here, if you look at the bail arm, the trip arm, it is heavily worn. It's got a lot of wear in there. And what's happening is when it's coming up this ramp right here, it's having difficulty getting enough oomph on the bail to trip it. So what we're going to do is the same thing that we did with that. As a matter of fact, it looks like at one time in the middle of this bail, there was actually a ridge. It was like a riser. And what we're going to do is the same thing that we did there. We're going to build this ramp up with a little bit of super glue and let that cure. And I believe that that will take care of the riser problem. After we've done that, we'll take the rest of the reel the rest of the way apart and get it cleaned up. Let's go ahead and, now that we know that this is working, we're going to slide this back off, both pieces. All right. And I'm going to scrub this up, and we're going to put a few layers of super glue down there and see if we can't get that straightened up. Okay, well, that super glue's curing on there. We're going to go ahead and take this spring loose from here, or try to. Okay. I'm going to leave that on there. The only thing I really wanted it off for was to be able to take this free. There's our Crosswind block. I want to take these two screws out and be able to take this bearing out. Okay, with those out, I'm hoping that we can slide this around and take it off without having to take all that apart. There we go. And now we should be able to pull the pinion gear out along with the bearing. Okay. We're going to go ahead and oil the bearing. Put it off to the side. Okay, we're going to leave this assembly in. I'm not going to try to pull that out. But what we are going to do is come back here and redo the drags. Work it off. I think it's just a rubber cover that slides. Oh, yep, there it goes. Okay, so it's a rubber cover that fits on over top. See, I couldn't figure out how to get to the screw. I was certain it had a screw, but I wasn't sure how to go about getting to it. So now that we've gotten to the screw, we can go ahead and unscrew the screw out of here. And that's going to allow this now to come all the way out, I believe. This piece is a counter tape. Okay, and the counter tape's job originally was to have these little tips on it and they plugged into right there. And then what they did when they were taped on there is they would wrap around and around and around, and they would tell you what your drag number was or where you were on this, because this tape slid into this little window right here, and as it would wrap around, as it would go around and around, the number would tell you what drag number you were on. Well, this tape is broken off on both ends, so it cannot go back in. So we're going to leave it out completely, and we're going to go ahead and put the window back in, even though it'll help keep dust out. All right, and then the cover just goes back on, and that's got the drag set back up, and that was not pleasant. Let me make sure I don't have the drag washers in wrong. Nope, they're in correctly. All right. Okay. That was not fun. I don't recommend anybody ever do that. Here's what that needs. If you wish to service these and you don't see a bunch of rust or anything in there, what I recommend you do is take a little WD-40 and spray it on them, because all they are is stainless steel and Teflon washers. Okay? Move it a little bit. If you have a real desire to crank it around, slide it in, slide your axle shaft in, slide this on, and rotate it around some. I'm going to tighten it down. Okay, there you go. You can see inside the washers turning where they turn. Okay, and loosen it back up. You get some WD-40 on them. That's good. Now, come back and add some fishing reel oil to it, and you're done. That drag needs no more work than that. I would never recommend taking that apart unless this tape is broke off in there and it's jamming things up, which this one kind of was a little bit. So it's out of there now. You've got a blank window to look at. You don't have a number in there anymore. You have to adjust your drag by hand now, by feel. Or you can do it like other people and put a scale on it so that you know what your drag is. All right. Okay, there's our pinion gear. It's in excellent condition. We are going to go ahead, put some grease on that. Slide your pinion gear in, and now you need your bearing in. We are going to install the pinion gear with the axle shaft on it. That'll help hold it straight while we put it in. There we go. Well, I thought it would. There we go. There. Man, this reel has given me nothing but fits. Okay, at this point, we can go ahead and take that axle shaft back out. And let's put our retainer back in. I believe it's going to have to go in just like that. And that will give us a screw there, a screw there. We've got to hook this anti-reverse spring back up right here. There we go. And it's going down too far. Why is that? Because it's missing a piece. Gotta have this piece first. Knew something wasn't right. Then slide this one down. And it slides down inside the other one. And it has to be inside arm to arm, like so. There we go. There we go. That's got that. Okay, we've got this super glued up on this ramp here, and I don't think that added much to it, but it probably added a few thousandths, and that's what we were counting on or hoping for. And we're now going to put the rotor back on. Now, if you've got this reel and you put this rotor on and you expect this bail to trip without the axle shaft in, I'm afraid you're in for a rude awakening. It's not going to do it. It's a little too flimsy. So let's first go ahead, put our nut on the rotor. And we're going to put the locking plate back on the nut. This should, at this point, be able to trip the bail, but watch the rotor. See how the rotor wobbles? Well, that gives it just enough lift on its side to keep it from tripping the bail to drop it back down. So here's what we got to do. We got to go ahead and get the rest of this back together before we mess with the bail. So we're going to start off with our crosswind gear, which I've already greased and lubricated. Next, it's going to be our crosswind block, and it goes in with the screw hole facing towards the outside top over here. Set it down in there so that it fits over top of that post. Now remember when I took this out, I had to yank it really hard. There's actually some burrs built up on this, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this file and ease those burrs down. And I'm rotating that around as I go. All right, that should be enough. It feels nice and smooth when I run my fingers across it. We're going to slide that in. Let's go ahead and oil it. Slide it into the crosswind block and then get it to mate up with the drag system in the back. Now see these two rings right here? What you got to do is push those through our crosswind block. There we go. And we've got to put this, install this clip in next. Here it is. Here's our clip. And this is going to seem a little bit counterintuitive, but what we want to do is put it in like this, with the screw hole facing the other direction. And I just dropped it down in there. It stuck to my finger. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, put it in there with the screw hole on the opposite side of where it's going to end up at. Okay, make sure that you've got it locked in. Then rotate it around the axle. And that's going to slide it in, bring it over, and now your screw hole's lined up over there, and you can put your screw in. There you go. Now, when you go to put your main gear in, you won't be able to unless you have this in anti-reverse. If you've got it in an anti-reverse override like this, that moves that notch over into the path of the gear, and it will keep you from being able to put it in. Okay, so make sure you are in anti-reverse, and then we're going to slide it in like so. Okay, don't lose this shim right here. There is a shim on your main gear, and I've already lubricated the gear with oil or grease. We're going to slide on our, there we go. Okay, we got the bearing on. We're going to line up the side plate, slide it in place. If it doesn't want to line up, take the handle and stick it in and wiggle it around a little bit. There. That should line up the side plate so it goes in. Okay, if it's all the way in, you'll have no gaps. Let's go ahead. Well, first off, let's go ahead and rotate. Make sure that we have our axle shaft going up and down. Which we do. In that case, we're ready to put our 4 screw side plate screws back in. Okay. Install your handle. Slide it through. Install your handle locking screw. Let's put our spool back on, lock it down, and let's see here. Do we have a flippable bail? We do. And it's working great. Okay, before I put that super glue on that ramp, we were having difficulty with the bail flipping. Okay, so there we have the Mitchell 300 Excellence, and man, this was not a pleasant reel to do. It's just not user friendly. It was designed to be put together. I really think it's considered a disposable reel. The numbering tape that's supposed to tell you what drag setting you have is broke off on both ends, so we couldn't reinstall that. And but aside from that, the reel's up and running. Okay, anti-reverse override works. Anti-reverse works. Now let's check it from the head, which is where we were having the difficulty to begin with. Okay, if you tried to rotate the head backwards, that's where it jammed up. All right, Jones, I think you've got a good reel here. Apparently you liked fishing it because you sent it in for repairs. So it's not a bad reel. It's just difficult to work on. And of course, your drag numbers, I'm gonna put them in the box and send it back. If you ever want to try to take it apart and figure out a way to put that back, I guess you can. But it's a perfectly operational, serviceable reel now. And your anti-reverse is working for you. I don't know how this is going to look once it's all edited. This is 2 times I went through this reel. And I've got pieces and bits and parts all over the place. And I had to do some jury rigging to get it to work. I had to put some super glue on the anti-reverse tensioner. And I had to put some super glue on the ramp for the bail to get the bail to trip properly. It's because the bail arm release is worn down, but it seems to function just fine now. And I'm going to be sending it back to Jones. You guys have a great evening. For now, that's Rick Stivers of Young Martin's Reels signing out. Okay, I know we said we were going to mostly leave this together, but I think we're going to take this bail apart. because it's gritty, and it's going to fail if it stays that way. So I'm going to go ahead and take that apart. So this cover on this reel is held on by this piece, which is held on by a screw in this end. So we're going to have to take this screw out on this end, on the inside. And again, I'd recommend never taking these apart if you can help it. But this one is really, really dirty inside. So we're going to take it apart. Yeah, very gritty. It's like it's a real fine sand it's got in it. Wow. And it's really packed with grease. Okay, we're going to gently lift this spring out. All right, I was watching a YouTube video the other day. The guy was showing you how to do a modification, and he didn't understand what this part was. This is a lock for this nut. It locks it in place so that it can't accidentally unscrew. All right, and I think it works. Am I going the wrong way? No. Okay, when all was said and done, all the parts scrubbed and cleaned and put back together, this bail didn't work. So I've taken it apart and cleaned it once more. And what we're going to do this time is we're going to put it back together with a liberal amount of grease so that hopefully these parts can turn better. This piece here is sticking inside the case of the rotor. So I'm hoping, now that I've cleaned it once again, it's fitting really tight in there. And now it appears I have too much grease in there because it's creating a compression and popping it back out. Grease will not compress. It's just like water or any other liquid. It will not compress. So it's creating a hydraulic problem there. And I'm going to have to get some of that grease out of there. All right, let's see if that takes care of the problem. We're going to put some grease on this, but we're not going to put it on there until we get it back in. All right, now see, this is going to fit into this slot right here, and it's going to match up the shape of that piece right there. All right, with that done, we're going to hold it down because it's spring loaded, and we're going to ease this piece down and get it locked in right there. And again, we're going to put some grease. And it was this way when I took it apart, and I just thought it was kind of grease clogged, so I took it back. I took the grease out of it, and it seems that the grease was required for this guy to operate properly. It's got a lot of tension on it, and it's going to go back down on here, snap into place there, and that little screw is going to go back in here. All right. And I have a heck of a time hitting that hole. There we go. right. This piece is going to fit back into here. Part of the problem seems to be that this post down here is worn. See the amount of wear it's on that post? But the fact that it was working when I took it apart, even though it was gritty, it was still working, leads me to believe that that's not the problem. Let's see if that's taking care of the issue. It is still not tripping. That ramp is not quite turning it enough. See how it's barely turning it? Oh. Okay. I believe what we have here, gentlemen and ladies, if you have any watching, is an operator error. Let's see if this works. Look at that. Okay, what was happening is without the axle in here, there was nothing to support the back of this. And what was happening is it was twisted around. The whole spool was twisting on the bearing, keeping that from tripping. Now that that's back in there, that's going to take care of the problem. All right, I know better. I've seen this before, and well, it come back to bite me.